What's up, nerds? So today I am going to be starting on a refinish on a Strandberg for a friend of mine. Uh, First step today, I'm going to disassemble it, and I will be doing a resin fill on the logo that's on the top of the guitar there. So today I'm going to be walking you through basically just doing the resin fill and the materials that I like to use. So I'll throw in a quick video of the disassembly process, and then we'll get started on the resin fill. All right, let's get started. Check out how cool these knobs are. They're pretty cool knobs here. I think he told me he got these from Iron Age. Place called Iron Age. Pretty neat. One of the things I like to do when taking apart the wiring is I'll come over and I'll take a snapshot for reference of how the wiring is. It's pretty easy to figure out, but it's just good to have as a reference just in case you forget. So I'm going to do that real quick. All right, so I've got the snapshots of my wiring. Now I'm just going to unsolder all the joints. So now that we have it all disassembled, we can go ahead and get started on the resin fill for the logo here. Yeah, and I'll explain why I do that, why I think it's a good idea, especially for the type of finish that we're going to be doing. So, all right, let's move on. Okay, so I have all my products set up for what I'm going to be using for the resin fill. I like to use this Art and Glow casting resin, epoxy resin. So we're going to want to mix that 1 to 1. I have my mixing cup, little stir. I got a syringe for later when we do the fill, and then I also have a toothpick just to make sure that I get everything into the cavities that I need it to go into. We're going to be doing pomegranate, kind of cranberry color with a purple burst on this one. So I'm going to go with the blue fill. I think purple, red, blue, those will all go together very well. Kind of hit the trifecta there. So, all right, let's get mixing. You're definitely going to want to wear gloves when you do anything like this. Very sticky, very messy. And you kind of want to find a separate workstation. As you can see, this is kind of a really fine powder. It's a mica powder. To do it at a separate workstation just so that you don't get kind of this really fine pearly powder all over your workstation where you're going to be prepping guitars. It can really get into paint and kind of ruin your day. You'll end up with little blue specks of stuff in there. So pour some in there. I put a little bit more than needed just because I like it to be a real nice solid color. If I were doing something that I wanted to be a little bit more translucent, I wouldn't put as much in there. But since I want this to be really solid in color, I'll put a little bit more in. So the reason why I'm doing this resin fill on the logo is we're going to be doing a gloss finish over the top of this guitar, and the clear will kind of fill in the logo, which is not a bad thing, but this kind of helps the logo pop out a little bit more, I think, and it also it helps prevent the finish from sinking later into the logo, because we're going to have a really, solid epoxy resin fill in the logo, so the finish won't really have anywhere to shrink, and you won't end up with these weird dips in your top where the logo is. I'll just kind of suck some up with the syringe here. This also helps create a vacuum and kind of pull some of the air bubbles out with the resin, which is nice because you don't want to have a bunch of bubbles in your resin when you're filling stuff. I apologize for the shakiness of the camera. I don't have a good stand yet, but I will get a better stand for doing this sort of thing. I think the syringe really kind of helps it get down into the bottom of the route there for the logo. It may be too wide of a tip for this, but we'll come back through with the toothpick and just make sure that we get it all the way down to the bottom and into all the edges. I haven't sanded the top yet, since there's already kind of a thin finish on these. It's a good idea just to leave it on while you do the resin fill. That way it'll kind of prevent any of the epoxy from really kind of soaking into the wood itself. And then you know, you can get your stain into the wood without having a weird little line of epoxy clear in your wood, which will prevent the stain from really kind of soaking in. All right, so now that we have that in there, oh, I see I missed a spot here. So you can see it's just kind of sitting over the top. It's a little bit thick. So it's a good idea usually to come through if you have any kind of a spreader. You can kind of take some of that excess off, and that'll help you save some time down the road when you go to sand out your instrument. So it looks like we got a pretty nice fill in there. Try not to get any of that neck pocket. It did. That's okay, we can just take that right out. A little bit of excess is okay. We still got some sanding to do on this on the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that dry over the weekend. It usually takes about 8 hours for it to cure to where you can sand on it. But we'll let this cure over the weekend, and then we will get started on sanding back the top, stripping it down, getting it ready for color. That'll be the next stage in the process.